This is the Ancient Texan. Um, I've got a podcast called Third World Cancer. I think in America, we have third world cancer. It's not a medical diagnosis, it's a societal one. The cancer is growing in the bottom third of our people and is slowly eating its way up the economic ladder. While the U.S. remains a wealthy country based on the average, we have a two-tiered system, the elite track and the precarious track. One set of America is stuck in low wage work, dealing with poor services and limited mobility. And then there's a high class of affluence, private jets, premium services that bypass failing public systems. This cancer is defined by high inequality and pockets of extreme deprivation, homelessness, tent encampments, visible right alongside incredible wealth. Our human development and governance metrics, we now rank closer to the developing nations than to the G7. Now, don't just put this on the Republicans. Probably this is best seen if you want to see these two classes side by side. Go to California. That's a Democratic state. The bottom third of our people would be better off in Latin America. Costa Rica has a longer life expectancy, up to 84 years, compared to America, low 70s. That's like 8 years, 10 years difference. What would you give her another 10 years of life? Healthcare. Low income Americans face high tech yet unequal systems in which cost and debt lead many to skip care. Meanwhile, Costa Rica offers near universal coverage with outcomes better than ours. If you live in the bottom 25% in America, you share the same standard of living with average American, but with slower income growth. What's the characteristics of this third world cancer? Economic stratification and extreme inequality, the wealth gap. Kind of already covered that. The shrinking middle class, stagnant wages, high debt, rising costs have eroded middle class stability, prompting some to describe the U.S. as a low income country for most of its citizens. Cost of living crisis. Costs for housing, healthcare, and education have outpaced typical incomes, leaving many full time workers unable to afford basic medical care or stable housing. Pockets of deprivation. I'll get that fixed eventually. Visible homelessness and temp encampments in major cities. represent third world levels of poverty existing alongside unprecedented private wealth. That's California. They passed a law that was supposed to change that last year. There's been no improvement in the number of houses made, number of houses built. And there's some, new building materials that are used all over the world except America that would lower the cost of living. But can't get that permitted in the U.S. It's a choice we're making. We're choosing to screw the poor. And in this gap between private affluence and public squalor, we have crumbling infrastructure. Public roads, subways, railroads are significantly behind other economies, while the wealthy bypass these issues with private jets or premium services. The general public relies on failing, underfunding infrastructure. We have lagging health and education. Health and education outcomes trail those of some Asian and African nations. You know, I think Trump called them shit countries or something like that. Well, we're behind. Our bottom third of people are behind a lot of those shit nations that he called it. Ordinary citizens face disasters, floods, wildfires, and storms made worse by inadequate public emergency systems, while the wealthy insulate themselves with private protections. The shift toward elite private solution versus failing public system is a hallmark of unequal middle income states. That's a fancy way of saying third world countries are really good at this, just like us. And on top of that, we have a political dysfunction, banana republic, institutional erosion, international indices of democracy and sustainable development have downgraded the U.S., placing it closer to developing nations in governance and equity. Oligarchic and strongman tendencies. U.S. policies resemble those of nations with populist leaders, centralized power, and weakened institution. Policies often favor oligarchy through tax cuts for high earners and reductions in social safety nets. SNAP has been cut back. Events like January 6th Capitol attack and challenges to election legitimacy reflect the instability of a banana republic rather than a consolidated, stable democracy. Probably don't want to hear that, do you? And finally, we have declining social outcomes in terms of basic health, safety, and education. Everyday life for many Americans now looks less like a rich social democracy and more like a stratified developing country. See, countries on the way up look like ours is on the way down. It's not complicated. And then on top of that, we have the AI scalpel and the failing safety net. AI is a tool of the elite. Unless we demand equity ownership, AI will simply be a means of laying off workers and shifting their salaries toward the rich elites controlling the algorithms. As desperation rises, the federal government is reducing safety nets for SNAP and healthcare. AI is hitting us at the top, government's hitting the safety net at the bottom. That's called a third world nation. The cancer is spreading from the bottom up. There's a upward creep of desperation in our society. You have to give Trump credit for seeing this. The Democrats completely missed it. This isn't just staying at the bottom. Each quarter, the chasm of the poverty line envelops more people. The middle class is shrinking with stagnant wages and rising debt eroding stability for the majority. We see this in our infrastructure, the public squalor of aging subways and crumbling roads, and in a political system that increasingly resembles a banana republic. We have built a system that defers to the powerful, while justice has been replaced by money. Epstein files and the crap that went on there, where hundreds were hurt and only two charged. That's not complicated, that's simple. That is what a third world nation looks like. That is what a third world nation looks like. The Epstein files. That's not just Republicans. If you want to go there, you can go there, but it's not right. Pardon my cold. Some closing thoughts here. Power versus compassion. Our national debt is a moral IOU that is finally coming due, and our bank account is empty. We've allowed power to smash compassion. If we had more compassion for the common man, would we choose tax cuts for high earners while selling off our children's future to fund the debt? It's time to stop burying our heads in the sand and face the reality of this third world cancer before it finishes its job. I fear that it may already be too late. The cancer is very advanced. And our democracy has done a horrible job at protecting the weak and limiting the power of the rich. That's arguably the one job that it has. Ultimately, a society is not defined by the height of its peaks, but the floor it provides for its citizens. When power becomes the sole metric of success, the machinery of the state is repurposed to serve the few, leaving the many to navigate a landscape of crumbling roads and failing safety nets. Compassion is not merely a personal virtue, It is the essential lubricant of a stable democracy. Without it, the third world cancer continues its upward climb, turning a once great middle class into a precarious workforce. We must decide if we want to be a nation that accumulates power at any cost, or the one that has the courage to exercise compassion for every citizen. Every citizen, starting at the bottom. Stay grounded, stay informed, and let's start looking for those trade offs that actually make society work for the bottom third. Because eventually, the bottom third is all of us. This is the Ancient Texan. Namaste.